Welcome, everybody, to There Will Be Bets. I am your host, Cole Oxane, back for another week. This is the Week 14 NFL preview. As always, I am joined by my co-hosts, Drew LaSalle and Jake LaSalle. We're back to give you another week of best bets, another week of touchdown scores we like this week. We'll dive into some props. We'll even cover some futures we like, and we'll even throw out the best of the rest that we don't get to throughout the rest of the show to get you entirely ready to bet this week, Week 14 in the NFL. We're off the big Thanksgiving weekend. We're here back to what is more of a normal week. We've got just a Thursday night game, the Sunday slate, and a Monday night. We'll dive into all of those primetime games when we get to them. But we'll jump into the week like we always do with some storylines. And I think this week, especially given all of the primetime action we had, we have a few big storylines to cover. And none bigger than, I think, what's going on in Chicago with the Bears and Ben Johnson. I personally was a big Ben Johnson proponent going into the year. I thought he was a big key to what went on in Detroit. I thought that Caleb Williams could use some strong guidance. I thought what they did with the offensive line was great. But even as someone who took their win total over, which happily already cashed this last weekend, I was not expecting them to be sitting as the 1 seed. I was not expecting this team to dominate the Philadelphia Eagles on Black Friday. So my takeaway from all this is just that Ben Johnson is legit. And I think we need to start taking very, very seriously that this team is going to be a threat this year, at least to make the playoffs and maybe win a game. And then from years to come, I think the Bears found their guy in the NFC North, particularly the teams like the Lions and the Vikings, who seem to be trending the wrong direction right now, need to be on notice. So I don't know what you guys think, but my takeaway from the weekend, biggest takeaway from the weekend, maybe aside from what's going on in Kansas City, but we'll talk about that another time, is what's going on in Chicago.
Yeah, completely agree. I think a lot of times you want to look to at how the team that he left is performing as well. And you're seeing the Lions really struggle without him. Third down, fourth down, red zone. I don't think anyone's surprised to know that Ben Johnson was the offensive mind in Detroit and maybe not Dan Campbell, but crazy to see it all happen so quickly. And you got to give Ryan Pace a little bit of credit too. He's really rebuilt that offensive line and got guys playing pretty well. And I still think their defense has a lot of issues, and they seem to just be finding a way to win games.
I do think their defense has started to pick it up a little bit. They did really well against the Eagles, and they've done pretty decently in the past couple games. But yeah, Ben Johnson is making this offense legit. It's probably it's top 5 in the league, and it's clearly just a complete change in what they were last year. Caleb Williams looks like a new quarterback. He actually looks, usable, serviceable as a quarterback in the league, and it's amazing what he's done.
I think this not only applies to Ben Johnson, but it applies to a few different teams in the league. Throw the Patriots in here. I know Mike Vrabel is not a first-time head coach, but all of these teams with the young quarterbacks, it's amazing what happens when they actually get a guy who knows what the hell he's doing. You just see these teams who were dumpster fires a year ago. Obviously, I agree the GM in both New England and here in Chicago do get some of the credit, but I mean, it's amazing. These teams are literally the first place team in each conference 1 year later after being some of the laughing stocks in the league. So I think it's really incredible what coaching can do in a league where we always think it's the players, but it can sometimes just be as simple as who's the coach.
More than any other sport.
Absolutely. And so if we're talking coaching, let's talk about a team who I think has a good coach. I think is another one of those people who has proven that he is a good coach, especially what he's done with the team. But I think this team's in trouble, especially given the injury situation. But that's the Indianapolis Colts. And full disclosure, I best bet them last week. It was just dead wrong. They were never going to cover that game. Houston was the right side all the way. But what was more concerning is that the Colts just don't look the same. I know there's the Daniel Jones injury that we learned about late last week. And while he looked okay, you can obviously tell he's limited with his legs, which is always a part of his game, his threat to run the ball, especially to scramble out of the pocket. You can tell he doesn't want to do that. Again, that's not going to make or break the offense. But I think really it's the injuries on the defensive side of the ball. You can tell they missed DeForest Buckner. That's not a new injury, but you can tell they miss it. And then Sauce Gardner goes out. Not only did they invest a ton of capital to go and get him, that's the top corner you have that is now gone in a division race against teams who have elite number 1 receivers. And we kind of saw that as soon as he went out this week against the Texans. We saw Nico Collins just shift into overdrive and really put up a wide receiver 1 performance. And then this team's schedule gets tough. They still have to play the Jaguars. They still have to play the Texans again. And all of a sudden it feels like not only the division is in question, but maybe the playoffs in general. I don't know what you guys make of this, but I'm kind of worried that we were all worried about Daniel Jones' pumpkin watch. I think the Colts might be the team this year that turns into a pumpkin. There's always one or two, and I'm afraid this might be one of them. So I don't know what you guys think, but are we on pumpkin watch? Are we not? Am I overreacting? What's your guys' take?
I do think that they've definitely been struggling a little bit. Daniel Jones injured. He fractured his fibia before the Chief game, and clearly it's shown in the past 2 games like he's been struggling. But I do think it's a bit of an overreaction just in general. People hopping off the Colts train. I saw today that it was plus 140 to win the division, like all the way back. They were minus like 300 a week or two ago, and it's switched back. And they put up a game that they should have won in Kansas City. And they put up last week, which obviously Daniel Jones just did not look healthy against what is probably the best defense in football. So I do think we need to watch it a little bit. I think they're going to bounce back this week. It is a pick'em game. I don't have anything on it, but I do think that they might have a good bounce back week. And I don't think that it's completely shifted to pumpkin yet.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm a little more worried than you are. I think I look at that schedule and see coin flip games all over the place. You got it at Seattle in there. Like this is a tough stretch, and I don't even really look at the Jaguars as the team to beat after that performance by the Texans against the Bills, against the Colts. I think this team is live. I know they're 3.5-point dogs going to Kansas City on Sunday night, but I think they have the Cardinals, they have the Raiders at home. They have a couple really winnable games, and we might be looking at that Week 18 matchup as another win for the AFC South situation. Because I'm still not a believer in the Jaguars, and even if they take care of business this week, I think that division's still going to be in play going into the last week.
I think that's probably the right assessment, is that they're not necessarily totally out of it yet, but all of a sudden a division that felt like it was kind of surefire of how it was going to go was going to be Colts 1, Jaguars maybe make the playoffs, Houston gone, and the Titans back in college football or something. But now we have 3 legitimate teams in the race. And then while you guys were talking, I did look it up just to get confirmation. It says, at least from reports out of Indy, that it's not a season-ending injury. It's just a calf injury. Those can linger, and I don't want to wish anything bad, but calf injuries, if you try to play on them, can end up worse. We've seen that before. So hopefully Sauce is okay. That will help him a lot. But so we'll at least see there with what happens. But that kind of brings me to a question that we talked about a few weeks ago, with kind of no team being good, and with teams like Indianapolis falling, and again, teams like the Bears rising and the Eagles losing and all of this crazy stuff. The Chiefs might be missing the playoffs. Anyway, it's one of the most wide open years we've seen in a long time. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago where we said we don't think any team's truly good. But if you guys, and you don't have to get into any details, it doesn't even have to be your official pick, but right now, if you guys had to pick a Super Bowl matchup, what do you think it is? Drew, you go first. Let us know what you would think it would be.
Yeah, I still think the Rams are the team to beat. I would go Rams playing the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl. Rams come out on top.
All right, Jake, what would you say?
I like the Rams. I think the 2 teams to beat in the NFC are the 2 best defenses, the Rams and the Seahawks. So one of those 2 teams coming out of there, and then coming out of the AFC, I agree. I think the Bills division is the 2 toughest teams going into the playoffs. So either the Patriots or the Bills.
Okay, I agree with the Bills too. That's actually the team, and we'll talk about it when we get to the future segment. I still believe in the Bills, especially after what I saw in Pittsburgh. I think that maybe the Bills kind of returned to their identity a little bit. So I would say Bills, and then I'm going to say they're going to play the Green Bay Packers. I believe in this team, and maybe I'll just get burned in the playoffs every year like happens when I back LaFleur late in the year. But I believe in the Packers. I think Jordan Love is sneaky, moving his way into the top 5 conversation. I think the Packers defense is good enough. They're not Rams or Seahawks good, but, one of those teams is going to be the wild card. And I think the Packers, if they win this week against the Bears, could find themselves in a position to take the 1 seed. And we know how it goes when they get to run everything through Lambeau. So I'm going to say Packers, Bills. And I'll say Bills come out on top just because I want to see Josh Allen finally get one. But all right, that's the storylines for the week. We've got a few rants teed up, and it was an angry weekend for the fellas all around. As we'll talk about when we get to the best bets, it was the worst best bets segment we've had so far on the show. We still had a couple of winners get home, but it was an under 500 best bets weekend for us, so I know that's going to fuel some of the fire here. Jake, you've got a rant. It's not actually one of your best bets. It was in one of Drew's best bets, but it's, your beloved Steelers, so take it away.
I am just so sick of Aaron Rodgers. His problem is he thinks he still can play the game, but he can't. And because of that, he tries to make plays or make throws that he could have made 20 years ago. And he doesn't have it anymore. And because of that, it's costing us games. I don't think Mason Rudolph is any better, but at least he doesn't have the idea that he is a solid quarterback in the league, and therefore he is a little less risky. And because our defense put up an absolute insane performance in the first half. I think they had 7 possessions and held them to 3. And it could have been 0, but our defense played exceptional, and Rodgers did absolutely nothing with it. We turned the ball over, I think, 3 times, and Rodgers didn't even get a point off the turnovers. So we're just sick of watching him.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is Mason Rudolph with the mustache, no go. If he's going to be the starter the rest of the year, I need him to shave it. Otherwise, I think I might still stick with Rodgers. Nonetheless, the Steelers were a frustrating watch on Sunday for most of us. Drew, you want to talk about fumbles and one of the most frustrating rules in all of football. Go ahead.
Yeah, really, really devastating to lose 2 separate bets on the same play. But Isaiah Likely fumbles into the side of the end zone in the first half against the Bengals, going in for a touchdown. Liked him. I think he was a little over 2-1 to score. He was more involved than even I thought he would be. I ended up liking his yardage prop just before the game. I think it was 24.5, but yeah, had a chance. If he scores, they're up 14-6. That first half -3.5 is looking pretty comfortable, given I think that was around 2-3 minutes left in the half. But instead, I get no touchdown, and the Ravens' first half dies with it. So that was really, really frustrating on a frustrating NFL weekend, and yeah, that was tough.
Yeah, and fumbles out of the back of the end zone almost reared its ugly head again on Saturday in the Ohio State-Michigan game in what would have been one of the most ridiculous calls ever for Jeremiah Smith to never put the ball on the ground and yet somehow be called for fumble out of the back of the end zone nonetheless. So that rule, just for whatever reason, this weekend decided, you know what, let's get into all of the most important games you're all watching and betting on, and let's make sure that you have to cringe when you hear the rules analyst show up to explain it to you. I could rant about the rules analyst another day, but I agree with Drew. It was frustrating to watch that, especially for those of us on the show who had multiple investments in Ravens tight ends, including Isaiah Likely. Which will bring me to my rant of the weekend, and mine is about the NFL schedule. Now, it's nothing new to rant about the NFL schedule, but why the hell are we playing football games on Black Friday that are professional football games? Professional football is not played on Friday. There's literally a government mandate that says you cannot play football games at the professional level on Friday to protect high school football. Now, in this case, it was actually interfering with college football, too, because Black Friday, as everybody knows, is the first part of rivalry weekend. Yet now in the last 3 years, we have to watch what usually end up being stinky games like we got this week, where teams show up because they're not prepared. It's also a letdown because they didn't get to play on Thanksgiving, and it's played in the middle of the afternoon, maybe the late afternoon if you're on the East Coast. And it's on Prime, so if I'm trying to watch anything else, I have to have it on a second screen or I can't switch over. And then I have to listen to sleepy Al Michaels on the call with Kirk Herbstreit, who doesn't care to be there. He wants to be calling the college game the next day because he gets to call an exciting atmosphere game the next day. And for some reason, we're stuck watching this. And I think it leads into the rest of the weekend where we're seeing that the NFL needs to realize they only have 3 good matchups a week, and they need to stop scheduling them all front-loaded or in primetime spots. They need to protect the sanctity of a Sunday. Thursday was awesome. We had 3 good games. And then even Friday, as much as I hated the game was a big matchup, we got to Sunday, and there were no good games. Some of them ended up being entertaining by the pure fact of football is an entertaining sport, but what are we doing, guys? If you're trying to get people to pay for Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV and all this other crap, at least give me something worth watching that isn't just on Thursday. I don't get it. I know it doesn't happen that often, but we're going to end up at Christmas where there's going to be 3 games played on Christmas, and it's going to be the same problem again. And Christmas also happens to fall on a Thursday, so it's just going to be a sleepy weekend that weekend too. And the NFL needs to understand they don't play NFL football on Fridays. And honestly, you need to stop overloading your primetime spots because at the end of the day, your football's played on Sundays, and if Sunday sucks, what is the point of having a football Sunday? So that's my rant. I'm tired of it. I really wish the NFL would stop trying to cover every day of the week. They should just be fine owning Sunday, Thursday, Monday.
Completely
Yeah.
agree. And also on that note, when we like it's due to like all these TV contracts and all this stuff, and like there's so many different streaming services all trying to get their piece of the pie, and it's gonna get even worse. Like I remember when we couldn't even watch a playoff game because you had to have a Peacock subscription last year. And tried to go to a bar to watch it, and they're not going to pay for a Peacock subscription, so they can't even get it at a sports bar. Like the NFL is just selling out to all these streaming services, and because of that, it's going on all these different days, all these primetime games, and it just makes the product, especially like you said on Sunday, just so much worse because there's less games, and all their so-called good primetimes are all flex, so it just makes it a sleepy Sunday, and it's the whole point of football.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Jake and I had a family trip that took us a little bit out of the Sunday slate this past weekend. Was not upset at all. Happy to just look at my phone while we were doing stuff. So yeah, that was well timed by Mama LaSalle on that trip.
Yeah, 2 thumbs up. I know she looked at the slate and made sure to pick the right Sunday, so we'll have to give her some extra credit for that trip. All right, well, now that we covered our storylines and we're rants, we'll get into the main segment of the show. That is our best bets. As we said at the top, a little bit of a tough weekend for the boys. We went 2-4. We're still 14-10 overall this season. That's 58% year to date. So we're still putting out more winners than we are losers. We're back again this week to try and get back on the winning side of the board. We've each got 2 this week. We're not having to pick just the Thursday game for a best bet. We get to look at the whole slate, find as much value as we can. So I think we're ready for that bounce back. Jake is going to start us off as always. He is, wow. He picked maybe the ugliest game of the entire season, but if he's finding value, then I'm ready to listen. Jake, what are you taking?
I'm taking the Browns -3.5, -4.5. Been betting on the Browns games the last 2 weeks, against them last week, and betting for them the week before. Hit them in both weeks. Just have a good read on the Browns. I think that they're, last week was the Shedeur letdown spot. I think Shedeur comes out playing well. The Titans are very bad against the run. The one thing the Browns offense does pretty well is run the ball. And once again, it's just the defense is the main key here. The Browns defense has been exceptional, especially over the last couple of weeks. And the Titans offense is very bad, especially when it comes to pressure. And the Browns are one of the best defenses in the league at promoting pressure. So I think it's a nice bounce back spot for the Browns. And I think they win it by 3.5, 4.5 touchdown. I think it's a good game.
I think the Browns pretty much should win this game without having to run an offensive snap, if I had to guess. I'll touch on it later in the prop section. I think this could be a massive week for Myles Garrett, especially in his chase for the sack record. I don't trust this Titans offensive line. I don't trust Cam Ward to deal with pressure. The total is nearly historically low. I think it's sitting around 34, 33 points. So that obviously does scare you when you take a favorite. But if you're literally playing a game where you think that the opposing team scores maybe 7 points, and that's a big maybe, I can't say I disagree. I obviously would like to maybe see a 3, but I think we've been tilting more towards the 4 side of the spread. So I think now's the time to get in on the game. But like I said, I can't say I disagree. The Titans are just so bad, and I just don't trust Cam Ward against a vicious pass rush and a team that plays a lot of man-to-man, which he's consistently struggled against this year. I can't say I disagree at all. I think it's going to be an awful snooze fest, but hey, there's money to be made in snooze fest if you're on the right side.
I feel like I have deja vu looking at the Raiders as 4-point favorites against the Browns 2 weeks ago. Like, how can you trust any of these teams to win with margin? But good luck.
Yeah, so that'll jump to Drew's best bet, actually. He's got another team who you probably can't trust to win by margin. Luckily, I don't think he needs them to win by margin. Drew, who you got?
Yep, I'm going with the Jets +3 shop around against the Miami Dolphins. I'll go into the advantages I have for both the Jets on offense and defense, but headline here is Tua outdoors in December or later. He's 0-8 in games where the temperature is below 45 degrees. Forecasts are showing around low 40s right now. His stats in those games: completion percentage under 56%, 12 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, a passer rating below 72. He's a pumpkin when it gets cold. And the Dolphins have been a horrific team we saw them play in Kansas City in the playoffs. We see them go to Buffalo, and it does not go well for the Dolphins. Let's dive into the matchup a little bit. So Miami's defense over the last few weeks, on paper, much improved, limiting rush explosives. They struggled early in the season against that. They've played a bunch of nobodies. Washington doesn't really provide a lot of explosive, neither in the pass or the run. When they played them in Madrid, they eked out a win against the Saints. Saints knocked on the back door and got home for a couple of us on this pod. But I think this is a lot more about Miami's schedule, and we're seeing the Jets. They've won 3 of 4. Tyrod is clearly a boost to this offense, especially their pass offense, who's getting good production out of Adonai Mitchell, out of John Mechie. And Miami's been really susceptible to, I'll touch on it later with a prop I like, running backs out of the backfield in the passing game. And Breece Hall has been really good in that department, really getting the majority of the work with Braylon Allen out the last few weeks. I think there's a lot of positive matchups for the Jets offense, and their defense has been looking a lot better. McDonald and Johnson have been getting a ton of pressure. Each of them have over 30 pressures on the year, and I think they give Tua some trouble here. And I talked about it last week. I'm envisioning the Jets' first interception of the season this week. It's going to happen.
Yeah, no, I think that noodle arm that Tua has could easily end up in that first interception of the game. I think it was just a bad weather situation to actually get that interception out of Kirk Cousins last week for you. I think that they just weren't throwing the ball downfield enough. I agree with everything you're saying on the Jets. They, of all of the bottom feeder teams, they're the one that looks the best. It feels like they're still playing for Aaron Glenn. It feels like despite the fact that they don't have a quarterback, everyone else on the roster is trying to absolutely be on this team next year, and even the quarterback is too. I mean, Tyrod Taylor, for all it's worth, looks like he wants to be the Jets quarterback next year. I doubt he will be, but he's playing like he wants to be, and their special teams is actually top in the league. It's incredible, and I think that might be the Aaron Glenn effect, but they're scoring every week, whether it's because they set themselves up to score or they're actually getting a score on special teams. They're winning the hidden yards. They're one of the few teams who's bad that's actually winning the hidden yards. Them and actually Tennessee, believe it or not, are winning the hidden yards, and it's actually making a lot of their scores look closer. And in a game where, again, the spread's tight, I don't trust either team necessarily, I'll take my chances that they can get a kick return or they can get something weird to happen and that they'll squeak inside that number for you. And I agree with you on the Dolphins. I think that schedule is a very paper tiger schedule. I know there's been some talk of people maybe thinking that it's going to save McDaniel long term. I know he's through the rest of the season. I just don't think that anyone who knows what's going on is really looking at it anything more than they have enough talent to not lose these games that they're playing. So I think the Jets is the right side in this game. I sure as hell would not touch the Dolphins.
Elite special teams. Arizona legend Nick Folk missed his first kick last week, but he's been unbelievable. Probably going to be the all-pro kicker this year.
We bet the Jets, and then mentioning that he missed his first kick of the year.
Well, he made it when it counted.
It did make it when it counted.
Been a fantasy savior for me a couple of weeks this year, and it's really the only reason I don't think I've quit fantasy football yet. All right, that will bring us to best bet number 3. It's going to be my first best bet, and I'm going to go back to the well with the unders. I'm going to take the Broncos versus Raiders under 40.5. Simple, talked about it a couple weeks ago. Divisional unders after week 10 hit at a 59% rate. We saw this matchup a couple of weeks ago on Thursday night. It was disgusting. It was a 10-7 game. It was a dead under. Never even remotely had to sweat it if you had it. Let's just go right back to the well again. It's the same teams. I don't think anything's changed. I actually think one team is a lot worse. So let's take that under. To dive into it a little bit deeper, the Raiders versus top 10 defenses this year can't score points. Against the Browns, they scored 10. Against the Broncos in that matchup we talked about, they scored 7. Scored 0 against the Chiefs, who actually might not be as elite as we thought they were, given the metrics. And then against the Chargers, who have graded out as a top tier defense, they've scored 9 and 14 points. So against all of those different defenses, they just don't score points. So that means all you really have to do to hit it under here is have the Broncos not put up a big number. And we kind of talk about it every week. The Broncos are allergic to putting up big numbers. Even in a weird, wild game last week, it took overtime to score 27 points. And so if you're telling me that they could hold the Raiders to 7-10 points, they score maybe 27, we're still under this number. I just don't see a world where this game goes over. And on top of that, the Broncos, they're off that OT game, some tired legs maybe, and then they play the Packers next week in primetime. So a little bit of a sandwich spot, maybe a sleepy spot. They're not going to really come into this game trying to do everything they can to win it. They know they can win it just by running the ball and, keeping it vanilla like they like to do anyway. So absolutely going to take my chance at the under here. I don't really see a world where this goes over unless all of a sudden we get the Geno Smith of a couple of years ago, and I just don't think that Geno Smith exists anymore. So I'm going to take the under, and we're just going to hope it's a snoozer.
Yeah, I completely agree with this. I also already took it. The Raiders, like I said 2 weeks ago when they played the Browns, just absolutely horrible against good defenses this year. I think they scored 10 points and got lucky to get to that 10 against the Browns. The Broncos are an under machine this year, and their defense is one of the best in the league. So I think it's just going to be a very gross game like it was in the first game. I think the first one was 10-7. I think it's going to be a gross game.
All right, gross is the name of the game this week on a lot of the best bets. A game that might actually not be as gross, at least, is Jake's second best bet. Jake, what do you got?
I'm taking the Bills minus 5.5. I do think that there is a bit of an overreaction going on with the Bengals. Joe Burrow comes back. They win a good game against, or dominated the Ravens, but I do think it's a bit of an overreaction. He does play very well against the Ravens. The Ravens defense has also been very poor this year. So has Buffalo's defense, but I do think Buffalo's main weakness is their run game. And because Buffalo is actually top 5 in the league at least yards given up through the air. The Bengals are not a pure run team. They're one of the least running yards teams in the league. They rely on their on the air and Jamar Chase and all these amazing receivers. I do think it's going to be a high-scoring game, but we saw what happened in the Tampa Bay game. 2 high-scoring teams. Buffalo just scored more. We said it earlier. I think Josh Allen is in playoff mode right now. He's trying to secure a good seed and trying to refocus for the playoffs. And I think that they're going to come out firing.
I like the point on the running attack. That's where you want to hurt the Bills, and unfortunately, the Steelers weren't able to execute the game plan I handed them last week. Must not have come in the mail. But yeah, I think the Bills get back to what they've been doing on offense, which is relying on explosives with James Cook. They're starting to get a little bit more from their receivers, but Kincaid should be back. I think they'll have a lot of success on offense. And yeah, I wasn't wowed by what the Bengals did the other night against the Ravens. I think that was a lot of Ravens self-inflicted turnovers. I mean, they outgained the Bengals in that game, but I think everybody needs to hold their horse on the Bengals. They'll get another crack at the Ravens, but I think they lose by margin here.
Arthur Smith must not have gotten that memo in the mail because they were throwing first, second, third down every freaking drive.
It's like the Lions against the Eagles a couple Sunday nights ago, man. They just don't understand what's happening.
All right, well, we're going to hope that package with the game plan doesn't find its way to Cincinnati. Otherwise, it might be in trouble. But Jake is going to lay the 5.5 against the Cincinnati Bengals. He'll be doing that with the Buffalo Bills. Drew, your second best bet is actually a team total.
Yep, going with the Eagles team total under 21.5. They got the Chargers going to LA on Monday night, and this is not a homer bet. I am a Cowboys fan, but I can spot trouble when I see trouble, and Kevin Petula is not long for Philadelphia. There's not a fan base that you want to piss off less than Philly, and they're calling for that dude's head for a reason. This offense is broken, and I don't see it getting corrected on Monday night. I see Chargers. Let's start on defense with the Chargers. I do think that the Eagles have some advantages on the defensive side of the ball. That's why I ended up going with the team total rather than with the Chargers, also with the Herbert injury uncertainty. But these guys know I love talking about explosive plays. So Chargers defense, do not give up explosive pass plays. That is pretty much the only thing the Eagles have been able to do on offense this season is hit Smith, hit Brown down the field. They haven't been able to get explosive runs. That's where you want to hit the Chargers. They've given up the 30th most explosive runs in the NFL. But these O-line injuries are a real thing. It looks like Lane Johnson didn't practice again today. I don't know if he'll play on Monday, but with him out, you can see their splits, their yards per play drop almost 3 yards with him out of the game. They were already struggling when he was in, but really, really a big difference for them. And yeah, when there's smoke, there's fire, man. This Eagles offense is not it. And even if they win on Monday, I don't see it as a high scoring affair.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. I'm not sure who's going to win that game, if I'm being totally honest, especially with the Herbert injury. But this Eagles offense, I just looked at it while you were talking. They haven't gone over this number since they played the Giants on October 26th. So that's over a month that they even scored 21 points. And I think the Chargers defense, at least scheme-wise, is formidable enough to rattle this team, given everything you talked about. I think Kevin Patullo doesn't use motion, and that's actually, if you look at the breakdown of the Chargers defense, the teams that succeed against them are ones that use a lot of pre-snap motion because that Jesse Minter defense is so reliant on pre-snap scheme. So feeds right into what they want to do. Like you said, the way you beat them is by being explosive. There's not an explosive bone in the Eagles' body, and I think that, especially given it could be a low-scoring, grinded out, especially if Justin Herbert's injured or not playing, where the Eagles kind of want to just play that way anyway. Why are they motivated to score more than 21 points unless it's just a free run anyway? So I don't see a lot of ways that the Eagles go over this unless we get a whole new Kevin Patullo. I did see some rumors that apparently Nick Sirianni's revamping the whole offense. I don't know if he's doing it. I don't know what's going on. So maybe that's how this bet loses, but I'm going to bank on the fact that Nick Sirianni and Kevin Patullo are not offensive geniuses and that you're at least going to be okay going up against a competent defensive team. So I think that it makes sense to go team total under here, especially given I don't know who's going to win the game. Don't need to care as long as we stay under that team total.
I do agree with this. We'll get into it a little later with the primetime picks segment. I think this game's going to look a lot like the Lions game that they played a couple weeks ago in primetime, where the Eagles might come out winning. They might win by margin, but it's good. They're not going to win by much. It's going to be like 17-10, something like that. A very low scoring, grinded out. Chargers are injured. Eagles are struggling on offense, and it's going to be a grimy game.
Well, that'll bring us to the final best bet of the best bet segment. It's going to be my second best bet, and I'm going to go right back to a team that did one of the few good things for us last week, and that is the Green Bay Packers. I'm going to take the Packers minus 6.5 versus the Chicago Bears this week. The Chicago Bears are in an ultimate letdown spot. They just won what is the biggest game the Chicago Bears have won in years on Friday against the Philadelphia Eagles. So that means it's time for a letdown. Why is there going to be a letdown? It's because the Packers are a top 5 run defense in nearly every metric, and we saw it last week against the Lions. The Bears get everything going by running the ball. Plain and simple. You stop the run, you make Caleb Williams have to throw, you make him have to throw from the pocket without as much play action, things don't go as well. Talking about it more on a metric standpoint, the Packers are actually even better against play action than they are against a lot of their regular running and passing related metrics. They're number 3 against play action. So that's the other way that the Bears usually try to dial things up and maybe take advantage of a defense when the run game isn't going. I just don't see a lot of chances for the Bears to do what they've done to some of these other teams against the Packers. Flip it around. The Packers offense has been humming lately. Jordan Love has looked really good. I talked about it last week, but it's Toyotathon, baby, and Jordan Love is money in Toyotathon. Pair that up with a Bears defense that, while looking better, still is bottom part of the league. This Bears pass defense is 19th in passing yards per game. They are 26th in passing yards per catch. They are 19th in sack rate. They are 18th in pressure rate, and they are 19th in pass EPA allowed. All of that is bottom part of the league. And against a team that has looked better passing the ball, has healthy receivers, has a quarterback that is slinging it, I'll take my chances. But we all know that the Packers offense and the Matt LaFleur offense is also driven by the run. Well, the good news in this case, the Bears' run defense is not that great either. They've had a ton of linebacker injuries. We've talked about it in past weeks. They're getting a little bit healthier, but I don't think they're at full strength yet. And the Bears defense is 28th in total rush yards allowed. They're 30th in yards per carry, and they're also 17th in rush EPA allowed. So whatever way the Packers want to go, I think they're going to be able to put up points. Real key to this game is that Packers defense being able to shut down what the Bears want to do, catch them in that letdown spot. And at the end of the day, ask a Packers fan, this game is being played in Lambeau. The Packers take care of business against the Bears in Lambeau. Let's just trust them to do it again. We're going to lay the 6.5 with the Green Bay.
Yeah, I disagree with this one. I think the Packers are a little overhyped. I think their defense has looked very good in certain spots. They played a very fortunate dying Lions last week, and a dying Jared Goff, and were able to shine against them. And I really think it's just too many points. The Bears continue to get undervalued and continue to show why that's not the case. Last week catching 7 against the Eagles, and they whooped them. That was not even in question. I think this Bears offense has a lot of threats, especially in the receiving game. The receivers have played exceptional in the past few weeks, and Caleb Williams is starting to look better. Ben Johnson, I think he's going to come out firing, and I think this Packers defense is going to be struggling to handle all of their schemes. They run the ball. I know that the Packers run defense is very good, but like Ben Johnson's able to scheme very well against good run defenses, and they're very versatile. Like I said, they have good receiving, good running backs, and their defense has been playing a lot better. Like I said, it did really well against the Eagles and in the past couple of weeks. And I just think it's too many points to give the Bears. This team is not just a winning machine. I mean, obviously they're number 1 in the division right now, but they're a covering machine. And you give a good team a lot of points, I just think it's very difficult to cover.
Bears getting 83% of the bets so far.
And I think that Jordan Love is an absolute pumpkin. I don't want to hear the Jordan Love hype train just yet. Bro, this guy is so average. Play him outdoors. We'll see what's going on.
I think that Jordan Love has taken the next step. And again, you are forgetting that this is Toyota-thon, and he is money. No, but in fairness, I think saying that it's too many points might be a fair criticism. The thing that tells me that maybe it's not enough points is the fact that we're just not seeing a 7, and that might just be because this line is so dialed in that if it ever hits 7, people are going to buy the Bears. But I think the fact that they're not moving that line a lot kind of says that it's probably pretty dialed in, and that people on both sides agree with this number, meaning there's not really any value in the number itself. It's more about the matchup. So that's kind of my take on that as well. But we'll see how it plays out. Like I said, I'm going to lay those points. Jake disagrees. We'll talk about it at the end in the head-to-head segment. But that's the pick. We're going to take the Packers. All right, well, that's the best bets for this week. We've got 6 more for you. We're looking to rebound from last week, get back to our winning ways. Before we get to the Guys Naming Dudes segment and get you all the touchdown scores we like this week, we want to ask that if you do like this video, make sure you leave a like. If you never want to miss another video from us, hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell as well so you know the second we put out every one of our weekly previews. And stick with us the rest of the way through the season as we continue to come out with content every week to get you ready for the betting slate. That will bring us to the Guys Naming Dudes segment. This is where we name our favorite touchdown scorers of the week. This week, we're back to having a full Sunday slate. We'll always be putting out our favorite 4-leg touchdown scorer parlay on Sunday mornings, but we finally have a full or almost full slate to choose from here this week. I'm going to start us off with the first 4 games on Sunday. We'll go through the rest of the crew. We'll start off with the Ravens-Steelers. We're going to go back to a well we went to last week. Hopefully he actually scores the touchdown this week. I like Isaiah Likely in this game. The Steelers are also not great against the tight end. They're not quite Bengals bad, but they are still in the top 10 of most touchdowns given up to the tight end. And as we saw, his role's increasing. Let's go with Isaiah Likely. He's hovering right around plus 300 right now. Falcons versus Seahawks game. We're going to keep it simple. We're going to ride the Jackson Smith and Jigba train. He's at about even money. He's been the absolute consistent target for Sam Darnold. I don't really think there is a second target. It's kind of just Smith and Jigba and everybody else. And I think that this game could be tighter than expected. And that means the Seahawks might have to throw the ball more. So let's take a shot with Jackson Smith and Jigba at plus 100. Browns versus Titans. Lowest total of the year. The only option for me is Quinshon Judkins. He's minus 130 for a reason. It's because the Titans are terrible against the running back. And if you look at the board, they literally don't know if anyone else is going to score a touchdown in this game. Everyone else is plus 300 or more, so it's kind of a long shot no matter what you like. I think that this is a minus number, but it's one I can swallow. Quinshon Judkins probably gets in the end zone as one of the couple scores in this game. And then finally, to round out my games, it is the Jets versus the Dolphins. I've got two for you. One's a little bit on the chalkier side. It's going to be Devon Achane. The Jets are giving up a lot of touchdowns to the running back. They're actually the fifth most in the league. And that entire offense runs through Devon Achane. We see it every week. They throw him the ball. They hand him the ball. He's at minus 140, but that's for a reason. I think he's as good a bet as any to score on Sunday. And then let's go with Darren Waller as more of a long shot, around 245 plus 250. The Jets also give up a decent amount of touchdowns to tight ends. Darren Waller is back. He had 3 catches on 4 targets for 47 yards last week, and Tua loves him. It's kind of his safety net. He loves to dump it down to the tight end. They like to get him in those cross-field routes. I think Darren Waller easily could score against a soft middle for the Jets.
In the Bucks versus Saints game, I am going to go with Emeka Ibuka or Tez Johnson. The Saints are pretty bad against the receiver. Have given up, I think, 12 touchdowns this year to the receivers. The Bucks in must-win mode. They, I feel like, are going to come out and play well in this game. Emeka Ibuka is plus 135, and Tez Johnson is plus 295. So a little bit of a longer shot on that one, but he has scored a lot of times this year. Next game is the Jags versus the Colts. I'm going to go with Tyler Warren. The Jags are very bad against the tight end, second worst, not quite Bengal level, but second worst at giving up touchdowns to the tight end. Tyler Warren, a bit of a Ponzi scheme, scored 5 touchdowns in a row and then didn't score for a few weeks. I think this is the week he comes back, turns it around, gets in that end zone. Vikings versus the Commanders. The Commanders are very bad against the pass. And I'm going with Jetta. I know that the Vikings have been kind of slug and can't bet anybody on their team. I think they get it right in this game, and I think Jetta finally reaches the end zone. He's been kind of on the milk carton all year. I think this is the game. Bills versus Bengals. I'm going back to the well with the tight end. I'm going with Dalton Kincaid to score. Bengals, like we've said, giving up twice the amount of touchdowns to tight ends as any other team in the league. Last week didn't give up any, but really should have given up 2 or 3. Had multiple chances that the Ravens just didn't take care of. So I think Dalton Kincaid gets in the end zone this week.
Starting off with Packers and Bears, I'm going back to the well. Christian Watson, he's still at plus 175. We talked about the Bears in that game a lot, but still think this Bears defense is pretty fraudulent. Majority of their production they've given up to wide receivers has been outside wide receivers, giving up 9 touchdowns to them and allowing a top 10 explosive play rate to wide receivers. I continue to see Watson's usage spike since they lost Kraft. Talked about that last week and got a little worried as that game went on, but he did get home for us as we expected last week. Moving to the Broncos and Raiders, not my favorite game by any means. I think we're going to see a low total here, but I do like Troy Franklin. He's sitting up over 2 to 1 to score. He's been Bo Nix's favorite target. I think Jake's been talking about this for weeks, and I was kind of sick of hearing about it, but 7 targets, 6 catches, 4 touchdowns since week 7. I'm not a Bo Nix fan, but that number, I think he closed at plus 140 last week, and to get him up over 2 to 1 seems like a good value to me. Cardinals, Rams, higher total game. I like Blake Corum and Trey McBride. Blake Corum is sitting in the market right now at plus 185. A lot of that is driven by Kyron Williams' injury that he suffered in their last game. He may end up playing, but I like it either way. I think this is a Rams belt spot, so you could see Corum get some usage late in the game. Getting him at that number right now is a good value to me. And then McBride, we've talked about ad nauseum. He continues to be the highest usage player of any tight end in the league, and given that this script will likely be a trailing one, I like him to continue to have high usage and get another chance to score here this week. Finally, Chiefs Texans. I am sticking with the chalk. It has not failed me. This is Trey McBride Jr. I like Rashee Rice sitting at plus 120. Another 4 red zone targets for him last week against Dallas. He gets in the end zone not once but twice. He's their guy. He's their entire offense. He's who they look to in the red zone, who they look to for big plays. They can't run the ball. This Texans defense is going to be a tough one, but I like Rice to score yet again this week.
Well, that will bring us to the end of the Week 14 Guys Naming Dudes segment. As always, stay tuned to our social media profiles on Sunday morning where we put out our favorite 4-leg touchdown score parlay so you can see who we like to score the most out of all of these guys on Sunday. So now that we've got those out of the way, we're going to jump to the primetime games this week. Like we said, we're back to normal. We've only got 3 of them this week. First is Thursday Night Football, an exciting Thursday night game for once. It's going to be Lions versus Cowboys. We let Drew pick the homer game.
Yeah, expect an exciting game. Total sitting at 54.5. Not exciting picks, but I like 2 props here on the Lions side. I'll start with Ross Dwelly over 9.5 over 9.5 receiving yards. Third string tight ends for the Lions. Looks like they will be without Brock Wright, who did get hurt in that Packers game. They're already down Sam Laporta. Dwelly had 3 targets, only 1 catch for 3 yards last week, but I think he should see an uptick in usage again. With Brock Wright going out of that game, you saw the Lions rely on him, rely on Tom Kennedy a lot with Amon-Ra St. Brown going down. He didn't practice again today. Looks like he probably doesn't play, so I like Ross Dwelly to go over his 9.5 yards. Really only looking for 1 or 2 catches to get over that number. Cowboys have given up almost 9 yards a catch to tight ends. 4 touchdowns, 74 catches. They've been very susceptible to that. And number 2, I like Tesla over 2.5 catches. Has yet to go over this number this season, but with no tight ends other than Dwelly and then no St. Brown, I think he sees another uptick in usage against an improving Cowboys defense, but one that is still very susceptible to the pass, giving up over 90 catches this year to outside receivers, almost 1,500 yards and 16 touchdowns. Should be an exciting game, and that took 2 stinkers of props, but I like both to go over in an exciting game.
All right, well, there's 2 different props for you. Adam, do a parlay if you want. Play them straight up. Drew found guys you probably never heard of, maybe some of them that you've seen a little bit this year, but nonetheless, there's value to be had on Thursday night. Jumping to Sunday night, I'm covering the Sunday night game. That's going to be Chiefs-Texans. It's a marquee matchup. And, of course, I'm going to take the under. Because if we have an exciting Thursday night game, it means we have to have a boring Sunday night game. So we're going under 41.5 in the Sunday night game. The Texans are obviously the number 1 rated pass defense. They're an elite man-to-man defense. This is the type of defense that makes Mahomes struggle. The Chiefs have an average run game. Establishing the run has been the formula to beat the Texans this year. And then on the other side, the Chiefs are a high-pressure defense. Steve Spagnuolo loves to dial up the blitz. Chris Jones is still as lethal as always on the pass rush, and that's when C.J. Stroud struggles his most, is when he gets pressured. And top it all off, we've said it a few times already, but it's a Chiefs must-win game. And when it's a Chiefs must-win game, they play it safe. They play lower possession. They don't do anything that they don't need to do. And that usually means that we see maybe a 3 where we could have seen 7, or we see a punt where we could have seen 3. And that could be all the difference in a total. Again, with 2 upper-tier defenses, 1 maybe the best we've seen in a few years. So I'm going to go under the total of 41.5 on Sunday night. That will jump us to Monday Night Football. It's going to be Chargers versus Eagles. Jake, what do you have in the Monday night game?
Yeah, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I'm taking the Eagles -3 in this game. I do think it's going to be a lower scoring game on both sides. Chargers very injured on the offensive line. Herbert's injured. I think he's going to play, but he is also injured. And the Chargers have struggled very heavily when it comes to teams that are good at getting pressure on the quarterback. The Eagles' D-line is very good this year, and the Eagles have just played a lot of low scoring games because their defense. And I think that the Eagles will win a nice game like they did a couple weeks ago against the Lions, just like 17-10, something like that, low scoring, hard-nosed game. get back on track.
All right. And for those looking to maybe pair up Jake and Drew's picks, you could probably play an Eagles -3, Eagles team total under 21.5 for some good negative correlation there. So that could be a fun way to play this game too, if you really are buying into the fact that it's going to be an ugly game where the Eagles find a way to win. All right. That will do it for the 3 primetime games this week in Week 14. Now that we have covered the primetime games, we're going to head over to Prop Corner, where we're going to give out a few different prop plays we like for this week. We've actually been pretty good on the props so far. Even in a tough week for the best bets last week, we were above 500 in the props, so we're going to look to keep that rolling this week. Jake, looks like you're going with Old Reliable on the prop. What is it?
I'm taking the Bills tight end, which I think is going to be Dalton Kincaid this week. I think he's back and healthy. Yards over. The Bengals have been horrible against the tight end. Yards, touchdowns, everything. Last 2 weeks, bet the tight end yards. Had Hunter Henry 2 weeks ago, had 120 yards career day. Last week, you could have taken either. I took Mark Andrews. Drew took likely. Both covered their yard totals with margin. The Bengals have given up over 100+ yards to the tight end in 3 straight weeks. High scoring total. Really like the Bills in this spot. And I just think go back to the well. Tight ends against the Bengals. Keep it simple.
Tight ends against the Bengals. It's a theme you're going to hear the rest of the season. Drew, you're once again making me look at the Jets game. What is it and why?
I touched on this a bit when my Jets best bet, taking the +3, but I like Breece Hall over 16.5 receiving yards. Miami's been super susceptible to running backs out of the backfield this year. You're seeing Breece Hall playing over 90% of snaps, no matter what the situation of the game is, trailing or leading. He in 3 games with Tyrod at quarterback, he has 10 catches on 12 targets for 114 yards. Miami's given up almost 8 yards a catch to running backs and have given up 57 receptions on the year. So regardless of how the game turns out, I think he goes over this number, over 16.5.
That's the play. If you're not looking to back the Jets, there's another way you can get involved in that game. Drew says Breece Hall over receiving yards. I've got 2 props for this week. One is a regular old normal prop, and one's kind of a fun one we'll talk about here in a second. First, I'm going Isaiah Pacheco under 7.5 rush attempts. Simple for me. Kareem Hunt is the number 1 running back in Kansas City, and Isaiah Pacheco's role is dwindling on this team. The Chiefs' rushing offense is already below league average, meaning they're probably not going to rely on it any more than they have to, especially in a must-win game. They're going to want the ball in Mahomes' hands as much as possible. That also means they might be relying more on the screen game, getting Kelsey involved in some weird ways. You know, maybe a designed run or two for Pat. They've actually done that a little bit more this season than in years past. And most of all, Isaiah Pacheco is just a very, very, very inefficient runner. He's already gone under this number multiple times this year when he had more of a role, and he still is just coming back off of his injury the last couple of weeks. I don't really see a world where he's going over 7.5 rush attempts. Even if he does, it would be very, very close. So I think that we're talking a very low ceiling. Let's take a chance that he stays under 7.5. Then more if you're looking for a higher upside, fun prop, I want to take Myles Garrett to break the sack record this week. If you're doing the math, it would be over 3.75 sacks. So that's to make sure that it's not just 3.5. It would be the full 4 sacks he needs. Now, this prop might be out there in a bunch of different ways, depending on the book you're looking at. There could be some props on Myles Garrett to break the sack record this week. You might be able to get an alternate sack total. You might only even be able to play him over 2 or 2.5. That's usually about the limit some books will let anyone bet an over sack prop. No matter what, I like sprinkling some money, plus money on this prop, because I think against this Titans line, it could be the week that it happens. And with how quickly it would be in the season, that would be a remarkable achievement. I think he's super motivated to have it happen. And to this point, against every offensive line they've played against, this defense is dominated. I don't see why it couldn't happen this week. So let's have some fun. I'm going to take a shot at Myles Garrett to break the sack record this week. Well, now that we covered the props in the prop corner, we're going to jump over to Futureland. And we actually have a couple of futures that we want to take this week. Drew has one in the NFC. I've got one in the AFC. Drew, what is this NFC future you're looking at?
Yeah, it might be a bit wishful thinking with some Cowboy fandom, but I like the Cowboys to win the NFC East, sitting at 7-1. A lot of this is driven by the Cowboys and improved play on defense and Dak's continued high-level quarterback play and some of their favorable matchups they have down the stretch. But it's really a bet on the Eagles just completely imploding. I don't think this podcast has ever been a big Nick Sirianni fan. And clearly him going internal yet again at OC is showing to be a huge failure. And they got a huge game on Monday night. If they lose that game, this number craters, even if the Cowboys aren't able to get it done in Detroit, because there's rumors Jaden Daniels might be playing to finish out the rest of the year. They play Washington twice. They still have to go to Buffalo. I think this is very live. If we get a Dallas win and an Eagle loss, they probably flip to plus 120, plus 140 for each of them. So just think there's a ton of value in this, and books are continuing to kind of overrate the Eagles coming off of the Super Bowl win, but this is not the same team.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a fair statement after what we saw on Friday. Will they completely blow it? I don't know. And it would require me to trust that Dallas doesn't also find a way to Dallas it. But you know what? At plus 700, I think there are worse bets you can make with your money right now. So I don't know if I'll get there, but I wish you the best of luck. And you know what? Even if it gives you more enjoyment as a Cowboy fan rooting on something else just besides strictly them trying to make the playoffs, you know what? I'm here to support you.
This is regular season Dallas. That's postseason Dallas you're thinking of.
True.
That is very true. That's very true. All right. Well, postseason Dallas out of the picture. Let's talk postseason in the AFC. And I think there is value across the board in finding a Super Bowl winner in the AFC right now. If you look at the sports books right now, the shortest odds is about plus 900. That would be on the Bills to be your Super Bowl champion. I know it's crazy. The Bills are actually favored ahead of the Patriots right now. That's probably just the Josh Allen effect. I kind of lean towards the Bills still too. But my pick here is actually just pick whatever team that you like the most in the AFC right now, because there is probably value on them. Considering the fact that we know guaranteed one AFC team will be in the Super Bowl, these numbers are just a reflection of the fact that we're not sure exactly how things are going to play out. But if you see some value on a team, I see some value on the Bills right now. I think they might have figured some things out, especially last week, getting back to the run game, getting Josh Allen in playoff mode. I think this team probably should be a little shorter, along with a couple of the other teams. Even if you want to go crazy and take the Chiefs at plus 1900 because they need to win out and have a lot going their way, but you think it can happen, I think there's value on it. So my future pick is going to be pick a team to win the Super Bowl from the AFC. At the very least, you should be getting yourself in a playoff spot where you might have some hedging opportunities. And if one of those teams catches fire, now you're sitting on a great ticket that you probably shouldn't have ever had available. It's just thanks to the variance we're seeing in the AFC. Well, we're about to wrap up the podcast, but that means we need to touch on the best of the rest. These are just the bets that we didn't fit into another segment. Maybe it's a different sport. Just some stuff we like this upcoming week and weekend that we're going to be playing that we want to share with everybody else. Jake, you're going to lead us off. Looks like you have a college football play for championship weekend. What is it?
Yeah, I'm taking Ohio State minus 4.5 against Indiana. After watching this team all year, and especially last week, this defense is amazing. They are very hard to score on. They're very hard to move the ball against. And their offense, obviously, that we know that their receivers, they have two of the best receivers in football right now, and very hard to stop offense. Their quarterback has been coming into his own, playing really well in recent weeks. I think the Indiana team, as much as I think that they are a very good team, and I have been one of the biggest advocates for them, I do think they are a little overhyped, and going into the team that is the best team in the country, I think that Ohio State comes out and proves that they're the best team in the country and covers the number.
All right. Jake says trust the Buckeyes yet again this week. For my best of the rest, I have a couple. I do have a college play as well. I'm going to lay the points with Texas Tech against BYU. Right now, it's sitting around 12.5, 13. I say anything under 14 is good to go. I think this is a wild disparity of talent in this matchup. We saw this exact game play out. It was in Lubbock, so obviously you have to take that into consideration. But this game's also being played in Arlington, so still not too far of travel for Texas Tech. And I just think this team's way better. I think BYU is one of the most fraudulent teams in the entire landscape of college football. And I think it's going to look a lot like it did the first time. This team's going to win probably by margin. I actually will be playing multiple units on this play. I'm that confident in this team this weekend. And then wrapping things up with the NFL, I really just like the divisional under trend in general. I was obviously the logic behind my best bet this week of the Raiders Broncos, but I just wanted to point out that there are a lot of divisional unders this week. I like a couple of them as well as the Broncos Raiders one. I have already bet the Ravens Steelers under, and then I have also already bet the Jags Colts under. And I think that as well as the Saints versus Bucks, the Packers versus Bears, the Jets versus Dolphins, and the Rams versus Cardinals. Those are all divisional unders. I think all of them are worth a look this weekend, given the strong trend of them happening after week 10. And I think that this time of year, we just see teams play a little bit tighter, given the fact that a lot of teams are just trying to secure their spot in the postseason. I think it's definitely worth looking at the divisional unders this week. Well, that'll do it for our week 14 preview. To recap the show, as far as the agree board, we don't have much this week. Really, the only thing we had some consensus on is that this could be kind of an under week. There was a little bit of love for my Broncos versus Raiders under pick, but that's really about it as far as agrees. We did have one very notable head-to-head. I am taking the Packers minus 6.5. Jake told me, stop, that is too many points. Jordan Love is fraudulent, and you should be looking the Bears' way. So we're going to see how that one plays out. And that'll be the big head-to-head this week. But that'll, like I said, bring it to the end of another podcast. We gave out our best bets. We gave out the touchdown scores, the guys that we like to score this week. We jumped into the primetime games. We gave out props in the prop corner. We had a couple of futures this week for you. We threw in some college plays. Got a lot packed into this episode here. So if you did enjoy, please be sure to leave a like on the video. We love doing this for everybody out there watching. So if you want to keep seeing the content like this, leave a like, leave a comment. If you agree with us, disagree with us, if there's something you'd like to see us change about the show, please let us know. And most importantly, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss anything coming from us every week. Hit that notification bell to be alerted when things come out. And other than that, we hope that everyone has some good luck this weekend. We're heading down the home stretch of the NFL season, so let's hit some wagers and let's have another profitable weekend.
Let's have a week.
Go.